Thank you very much. Good evening, UNC family. I can't hear you. Good evening, UNC family. And friends and others. I always tell you the others are listening too. They don't miss out at all. Every Monday night, they're hooked on. I told you the week before when I spoke, before I even reach home from this meeting, they're already texting each other, commenting on what we say. So let them listen, because we will teach them how it is to have good governance in this country. As we share our thoughts, our ideas, our commentaries. And of course, it's not just for us to come and complain. I've been telling you that. But it's for us to also share things that can be done, ways in which we can better govern this country so that every citizen will feel safe, everyone will have a good quality of life. And that's why we come to you in these meetings to share with you. So, to UNC family and all others hooked on, good night. Welcome back. Last week we took a break, but we were very busy in the Diwali celebrations. And this year, as I attended Diwali Nagar, it was one of the largest I've seen. Massive numbers of people were there. So welcome back. Before I move on, I want to say congratulations to Dylan Carter, flying the red, white, and black, making TNT proud. Dylan in the swimming World Cup, he didn't win one medal, you know. He didn't win 2 gold medals. I am told by now he's counting his 6 gold medals Dylan has won. Well, thank you, Dylan. And to the people of Tobago, let me congratulate you for your safe, enjoyable carnival that you had over the past weekend. So let's give them a round of applause to the people of Tobago. So much to say with so little time. So I'll move straight into some of the things I want to share with you tonight. Other speakers, I want to thank our speakers tonight, MP Khadija Amin, MP Dinesh Rambali, MP Dave Tanku, MP David Lee, and our brother Victor Roberts, we can't forget him, vibrant and alive as always. And let's thank our 2 chairpersons, Councillor Hazari and Councillor Kern. Thank them very much. Thank you so much. So, where are we today? And if I do not speak about crime tonight, I think we will be missing a lot. And I'm not just going to complain about the numbers, as I say. I will share with you some ideas to better increase security in our country. We are in turmoil. Those charged with protecting and securing citizens, they have fled, they've gone in hiding. Last couple of weeks, you know, the Prime Minister had PIP. You remember that? He had accused somebody about PIP, and I didn't know what that was, but I found out. He went totally silent. He went MIA, missing in action for weeks. And then you see today now, posting a photograph on the social media, missing in action. All of this going down, horrendous crime scenes. And he's missing in action. What do they do today? Post up a picture to say, last week, the Prime Minister instructed that a National Security Council meeting be held today. So why you had to post last week he instructed for the meeting to be held today? You know why? It's a total photo of Papi show. That's what that was. And Munilal sent me a text me, he said that looked like a Halloween picture. Halloween. So I'm thinking, why is it Halloween? It says like the ghosts have all arisen. It is Halloween day and night. So they come to make you feel that they're working when there was no response over all these weeks, trying to fool us that you instructed last week. So why didn't have it last week? When the crime is spiraling out of control every day, why you instructed to do it today? And after you did it, I'll share it in a moment, nothing of substance has come out of that meeting. As I say again, the Halloween photo op that they put out. You remember recently when the Prime Minister made a very long speech calling crime a public health emergency. He could not even describe what that meant up to today. It just sounded nice. He grabbed it off the, cut and paste from on the internet. Sounding good, like we're doing something. Public health emergency. And nothing happened. So People lapped it up wholesale. Okay, public health emergency, let's deal with this thing. And this government goes on the internet. They copy and paste, as I told you, from a woke crowd. They then throw it out to the population, lapped up by some people with no understanding of how government agencies or civil society actually works. They are totally clueless. They had promised since 2015 a whole series of things they would do to fight crime. And today, after they've completed their national security meeting, the Minister Hines goes on national TV and he says, we're not doing this, we're not doing that, we're not doing the other. So what are you going to do? He says, heightened police presence. Isn't that what you've been saying for the past 7 years? You hold this whole meeting, you come up with what? What? Heightened police presence. What's new? Rehashed policy that is obviously not working, has not worked for the past 7 years. So, as I say, clueless. Our country is under siege. There are 808 murders and maybe counting as we speak. Heaven help us. This is not a cricket score, you know. This is not a cricket score at the stadium. This is at the Oval. These are murders, 508 murders under Rowley. This is not something to celebrate like a cricket score. This is something that we are all in mourning about. Over the past days, been rocked by an alarming surge in homicides. 30 murders occurred in just 1 week, and not a word from these people, not one word. Dinesh mentioned about sympathy, and they have no compassion because they're all fully and heavily guarded. Total security details that they have. You know, I've been seeing as we go to Parliament, we will see, the MPs will tell you, when these ministers come to Parliament, there's heavy security brigades, you know. When we were in government, you didn't have every minister with security brigades. They have a few of them who are not in a portfolio that demands this heavy security detail. So one day I'm going to Parliament and I'm coming from the back to the Parliament. And that was the day when some great citizens were outside the Parliament protesting. And I saw the back gate of the Parliament open because the protest was outside the front gates by the Woodford Square. The back gate open, I see about 5 security vehicles pelting in there. I said, who is that boy? You know who it was? A fellow named Minister Young. Minister Young, with a heavy security detail. From what I recall, in all the years we've been in the politics, we've been in government, out of government, Prime Minister has a security detail. The Minister of National Security would have a detail, and the Attorney General. These are high-risk, considered high-risk portfolios. So what is the Minister of Energy doing with such a high presence of security personnel? When out on the road, it's thousands of people cannot live safely, in fear. I read a story, and it is not that this is because of who it is. I read a story today where these ladies are saying they were upstairs in the 3rd story of a building. Bandits home invading, and they jumped from on top 3 stories down on the ground. 3 stories down. And the woman says when she jumped down there, the fellow with the cutlass coming to hit her, and it's only as her car came with some bright lights that God saved her life. So everywhere you have these stories, a young child killed in the recreation ground. I saw Munilal talk about, what is it, fast service or fast delivery. People getting gunned down in the cemetery. So you just roll over, because in cemetery already, it's fast delivery. And here it is, you have these ministers with these high-powered security details. So they are not scared. They could wait 2 weeks to come to talk about this security problems that we've been seeing over the last many days. And therefore, our country now, we talk about the pandemic. We've been talking about this before. We are in a crime pandemic. And whatever happened, you know, by the way, we have here the failures, a string of failures in national security. You had the fraud accused, remember? Dylan, do you remember him? I wonder where he's gone. Don't hear about him again. I wonder what happened to Clarence Rambarat, by the way, just crossed my mind. I thought he was going to be the one-point man to put up some kind of, what was it, a land agency or something? Huh? Single point land, something. Where is he? Remember Mr. Young as well, his stepdaughter, charged with drugs and gun possession. What happened to that case? And then we have Hines always in the wrong place at the wrong time, falling asleep on himself in and outside the parliament. They also have a minister who was the subject of a special branch report concerning gang affiliations. What has become of that? What about the 3 government MPs who were allegedly associated with the DSS Susu? You see how we are not even a 7-day wonder anymore. It's like a 1-day and 2-day wonder that all these things get swept under, covered up. They have no idea how to stop crime. They do not have the political will to stop crime because you know why? They are part of the problem. At best, they have the gimmicks and the distractions and so on. When Hines said over the weekend, nonsensical soundbites, nonsense, he said over the weekend that he had no evidence that the gangs have been marking children for death. What does that mean, Mr. Hines? Are citizens supposed to feel better because you said that? Rowley must fire Hines, but I don't think we should do that. We should do what Dinesh said. Just dissolve the damn parliament. Dissolve the parliament. Dissolve the parliament. And call the elections now, because we're calling on people to resign. These people are shameless, you know. Total incompetent failures. So for us saying, resign, then fellas are going away. All of them eater food. Everyone is eater food of them. Big security detail, flying up and down as MP Lee tell us all over the world. You know, Prime Minister Rowley is being accused, and he must answer it, that when he's traveling, he asks for more than the allotted per diem. What is a per diem? That is money per day whilst you're abroad. Those things are fixed by policy. It's X amount. But we are told that when he travels, that he asks for more. More than. That's what says, eat a food. The whole bunch and gang of them eat a food. People are not resigning, you know. And therefore, I think we are too complacent. We come here and we complain and we go on the Facebook. Oh gosh, we have all these keyboard warriors. Real keyboard warriors. And then people text and say, UNC, waste of time. Why are you all not marching? Why are you not walking? Why are you not doing this? Why are you not? What are you doing? What are you doing? So it cannot be that MP Tanku or MP whichever, and councillors here, MP Munilal, Victor Roberts, MP Dinesh David, whichever, it is all of us in this thing together. And we will not get out of it if you sit at home and you are armchair politicians and you are keyboard warriors. We will not get out of it. The criminals now are more emboldened than ever before. They know the PNM don't have a clue. So they know they won't be caught, and they can continue to do their crimes. You know, I saw an Express poll today where they were asking how many of you will be willing to be a witness to solve a crime, be a witness in a court matter. You know how many people said yes? You better know how many said no. 85% said no. And why? Because you don't feel safe. Even if you know something, somebody knows something, you do not feel safe to come forward. And all of that is because they've totally demolished something called the Witness Protection Program. Dinesh, you will know about that. They've totally squashed that. So people are not even safe to just be a witness. So we cannot even when we find the criminals, we cannot prosecute them. Cases are lost because witnesses are afraid to come forward. So much more, Dinesh spoke about it, forensics, all the things they had promised from since 2015, and they have kept not one of those promises. And they have come up with no new ideas of anything to solve the crime. So, you know, the PNM always likes to blame us when things they are guilty of, things that they are guilty about. That is their distraction, their misdirection, whatever. Now, David Lee told you tomorrow night they're having a meeting. I'm not going to tell you where because I don't even want you to go. So I was a little saying, David, why are you advertising these people meeting, boy? Bullet, meeting my bullet. And why? So you will see when they come tomorrow, all of that, we have taken the first day of the week, first working day, Monday. So they'll put their meeting on Tuesday. So let's give a round of applause. Our Monday virtuals have been a success. And so when they come tomorrow, All they'll be doing, as one of you said it, buffing and distracting. Who said it tonight? MP Lee, you're the same fellow who talk about bullet, yes, about what will happen at that meeting tomorrow. So I want you to look at this graphic. Do we have the graphic with the crime numbers? Every time the PNM is in office, what happens? The crime? Always, always, there is a symbiotic relationship, crime and PNM. The two always up every time. So let's look at the graph. And you'll see there, since they've come into office, over 3,000 persons have been murdered. 3,000 persons there, and more, and counting. And you will see under the yellow, you'll see where we were. When we came in office into 2010, the numbers were very high, and we were able to bring those numbers down. So they come with all kinds of stories. In 2011, the government led by the UNC-led government, we brought the annual murder rate down to the lowest since 2004. Serious crimes were cut in half by our last year in office in 2015. And do you know why? We created opportunities. It's not just about putting more policemen on the beat or more boots on the ground. Yes, that can help. But obviously that's not working in the past 7 years. That on itself cannot work. You come back to say that's exactly what you're going to continue to do. So you will continue to fail. We will see, we did things. We created opportunities. We built the early childhood centers to give the children a place. We opened the gate. We opened the gate to create educational opportunities. We included tech work training because everybody can't be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. We need skills in the energy sector. That's why we created all this NESC, National Energy Skills Training. We put skills in construction sector, skills in technology. People can access good paying jobs. We created jobs. That is one of the answers. I am not saying that because you don't have a job, that gives you a right to be a criminal. I'm not saying that. But we must look at the holistic side of it. We must look at all the factors to see how we can do it. How did we do it? When we were there, I told you we brought it down. You see the graph yourself. And it was because of these things that we did. We created jobs. As Oprah Winfrey would say, you got a job. You got a job. Everybody got a job. Today, what has happened? You crushed the economy. Tanku talked about Imbert coming out with how much more money he has, and yet still nobody's benefiting from the more money. How much is it? 10 billion more? 11 billion. 11 billion. When you came and you were crying before, you can't help people, you can't fix roads, you can't create jobs, you can't fix the schools, you can't fix the recreation ground, you can't do anything. You say, oh God, boy, we don't have money, no revenue. Now you have 11 billion more, and people still suffering. Fuel subsidy, you're right. Take away, cut down the fuel subsidy. Victor talked about the state of the roads, and I intend to raise it in Parliament on Friday. In the Clark Road, I have never seen such horrendous roadways, but you will tell me every constituency is the same. And because of these landslips, people cannot get out of the Clark Road because the alternative roads are also crushed. So if you try to avoid Clark Road and use the side roads to get out of that area, you cannot get out. A lady sent me a text telling me she lives up in the Rochard Road. She has access to go, she has to go to Point 14 every day to work. Let's make up the Point 14 people are here tonight. And let's make up everybody's here tonight, please. So she says she has to go to Point 14 every day to work. But she cannot get out. So if you have to pass one Satnarine trace, another trace in the Clark Road, all these are in sinkholes, I think you call them now. Crushed landslides. You can't even get out to go to work. You could imagine if there's a fire. How will the fire drill, the fire unit get in? You imagine somebody's calling for an ambulance, or that ambulance is going to get in there. Anytime that happens, we put the blame and the blood squarely in the hands of no worksman, Sinanan, and this PNM government. We give them that blame. Because you see, road is not just a road to go to work. The roads are for access, for people to access, to get in, to get out, to access fire, ambulance, even police. Everything else, if the roads are in a sad state, everything is going to be a bad state. So this is what I'm saying. We created jobs. That helped with bringing down the crime rate. We built police stations. We set up a national operations center. We procured vehicles for the police for their rapid response. And I told you before, when we got these vehicles, Rudy, what were they? Yellow and blue? Yes, blue and yellow. These people hate the sunshine. Anything yellow, they just hate it. When everywhere in the world you see police vehicles, what? Yellow, more yellow, more yellow. That hate that you have in you is what is destroying this country. There is too much hate in these PNM people. And when you have that kind of hate, that brings that hate to everyone. It destroys a community. It destroys a nation. It destroys a country. And this hate that you have, that bitterness that you have, you are such a sad person. You all are sad people. What hate you must have in your life, how bitter your life must be, how sad it must be. That each time you speak, you're buffing somebody, you're shouting on somebody, you're complaining about everybody else, as you said it before, except yourselves. Hate will get you nowhere. That is why I tell you, we Indians, we love you. That is why I tell you, that is why we put the people-centered policies in place. Because I have no hate in my heart. A person with that kind of hate, I say, when you wake up in the morning, you probably don't even want to get out of your bed. What a sad life that must be. Just think about it, Mohini. Yes. How sad that is. And then I see one or two people on the Facebook posting, these people get up every day of their lives with woke statements and with hate. Get a life, please. Get some love in your life. That is what the human heart and the human being is about. Get some life. And so we were getting the job done. These are just a few of the programs that we had. These were some. And what we see now, in contrast, murders per year. I told you in 2008 was the highest in our country, 550. Who was in government? The PNM. The second highest was 536 when? In 2019, PNM. And now, with the numbers this year, what I said, 508 and counting, they're going to break those other two records. Well, nothing to really record, but they're going to break that. We are heading into way above. And where are we? We have just begun November, 2 months to go. 2 months to go. We'll break that very grim record. So under Rowley, Dillon, Young, Hines, people are living in fear. Man, woman, child, young, old, business, not business. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are. No one feels safe in this country. They have left our country in a state of lawlessness. They have abandoned their major duty to the citizens of our country. The major job of any government is, first of all, security and safety. I'll tell you why. Before democracies like ours were established, and in other parts of the world, it was a sword that ruled. It was the law of the jungle. But when we introduce our democracies with the rule of law, then we are governed by the rule of law. And in those days, as I say, the man it was not brain, it was brawn. It was the sword and the gun that you could go in a man's house, shoot him down and take the house. You could go in a man's house, shoot him down, take his wife, take his children, pick up his furniture, pick up anything he worked hard and put there. That was the law then. The law was the law of the gun and the sword. But when we establish democracies such as ours and in other parts of the world, we replace it, as I say, with the rule of law. But this government, their job is to totally mash up, break down, and kill the rule of law, as you told us, to go into a dictatorship. You said we were on the doorstep of a dictatorship. That's where we are going. Your first job as a government, elected by the people, of the people, and for the people, is to protect your citizens. And you have failed. You have totally failed to do that. Again, over the weekend, Mr. Hines said he understood the trauma and the fear that citizens are living under, and that government was working on solutions. You come Monday, big photo op, Halloween picture of National Security Council meeting, and you have nothing to tell the people. Nothing to say how you're going to address this issue with the crime, except to say, as I told you before, heightened police presence, which you've said over and over and over again. I see my MP Munilal and Senator Jayanti have written to the JSC about security. They said they will do it. Have you got a date yet? No, it says very urgent. Yes, we set a meeting. We are calling upon you to convene the Joint Select Committee of the Parliament on National Security now. Now. We cannot have you as failed, incompetent persons sitting in a room like that we saw in that Halloween picture, and you alone sitting down to make decisions to deal with it, because you're failed. And if you continue to talk to only yourselves, you'll continue to fail. So convene the JSC of the Parliament on National Security. Okay? So we move along. A nation under siege. I want to spend a few minutes tonight. We know what the situation is. Everybody feels it. Everybody feels unsafe. Let me share with you, in this midst of a crime pandemic, that I want to present some of our anti-crime plans. I presented these before, you know. Some will change, some will improve on, but I'm going to share with you. But that wicked government fooled the population as they did. They fooled them about the petrotrin. They fooled them about so many things before the last election. And they really told you about the dates. Just before the election, July 2020, Rowley said at a meeting they're going to give patriotic. The election come and done and gone, and then by October, rejected and thrown out. Before the election, they promised everything. They fooled people. The COVID pandemic, they used the COVID, they milked that COVID pandemic, and yet over 4,000 of our people died. Thousands others were blocked out of the country, and they are boasting about what they did for COVID. Lies. Always lies upon lies upon lies. So let me share with you some thoughts on our plans. We suggest, I'm not afraid to share it with them. They're so dotish, they won't even know what to do with these plans. They will not even know what to do with it. Not just, but just who it is was the dotish and the dumb, Victor? Well, I would, when you started, you said D, you said 3 Ds. I thought you were going to say dumb, dumber, and dumbest, but you did well in your description. So first of all, we need to restructure the Ministry of National Security. It is clear that the present system is flawed, that we cannot adapt to the demands of securing the nation with this Ministry of National Security. The Ministry of National Security, we suggest, should be split into 2 ministries, because this is one of the most serious issues facing our country, national security. I suggested we, and I say we, these are the UNC plans, we in the UNC suggest that there be 2 ministries instead of 1 of national security. And this is based on best practice around the world. I didn't just come up with this because I'm so brilliant. Of course I am, but not so much. Not so brilliant. So I'm saying we should have 2 ministries. 1, a Ministry of Home Affairs and a Ministry of Defense. The Ministry of Home Affairs will deal primarily with internal law enforcement and involve the focus on policing to ensure that the deterrent is provided and involving action, not ex post facto, not just after the crime, but also an action before the crime is committed. This Ministry of Home Affairs will involve law enforcement response, detection if the crime is committed, and apprehension. So, response, detection, and committal, okay, when apprehended. Such measures include all aspects of policing: surveillance, the use of electronic security, proper intelligence gathering, major aspects to internal security, such as fire and prisons, and this Ministry also of Home Affairs to include maintenance of law and order, safety, and security. The second ministry I propose, as we split national security, is a Ministry of Defense. Based on the critical need of protection of borders from the illegal entry of drugs, weapons, and human trafficking, and the worldwide increasing concern of terrorism, we need to have a specific ministry to deal with the security of our nation from these matters, which can cripple and is crippling our country. So the Minister of Defense, as a newly established ministry, to help us deal with all these issues about trafficking, terrorism, drugs, illegal entry of drugs and guns. And I see this government is so hell-bent upside down, backward instead of forward. They're busy wanting to lock up people who have legal guns and take away the legal guns, but they have not a plan, not a policy, not a program to deal with illegal guns, but they complain all the crime is about what? Illegal guns. Law-abiding citizens, you want to take away their guns because you have some vendetta against a fellow named Gary Griffith. I don't know what it is you have with Gary Griffith, but he was the best commissioner of police we've had in a long time. And if anybody knows anything about Gary Griffith, he's not going to rest until justice in his eyes is done. So you've seen he's filing all these matters, bringing to light a lot of things that the government had swept under the carpet and hidden in their transgressions, in perverting the course of justice, witness tampering. I mean, when Stuart Young went on that plane to talk to Nelson, what are you doing that for? Was he then acting AG? What was he? Isn't that witness tampering? To go and talk to a witness in a big, big matter, billion-dollar matter, talking, that's witness tampering. So they've engaged, as Dinesh told you, in many, many, what will seem to be illegal actions. Back to the Minister of Defense then. This ministry will be based on new threats and clear and present danger that all nations face, both in border protection and problems encountered with illegal entry of weapons, drugs, and human trafficking. Ministry of Defense will focus on proper border protection. You remember the PNM in 2015, they promised something called a border protection something? What became of that? There's so many other things that Dinesh mentioned. Border protection, but you're crying up to now crocodile tears about, illegal entry of guns, drugs, guns, trafficking, and so on. What became of your big plan for this border protection unit? Nothing. So we will focus, this ministry will put a focus on border protection. We'll establish a network to work with international allies in intelligence and joint operations, and also give emphasis on the critical aspect of policies to deal with terrorist activities, both in prevention and immediate action, if it ever exists. I continue. Not enough to come here and cry, or for you to storm and cry. We must have the plans and the programs to deal with this horrendous situation. Ministry of Defense would incorporate the Defense Force, immigration and customs to handle border control again, and also with specific units to deal with terrorist activity, will now come under this Ministry of Defense. So do you see what I'm saying? We have the Ministry of Home Affairs to deal with things that are happening on our soil, policing, protection, and so on. And the Ministry of Defense will have to do with everything with border control at all our ports, customs, immigration, at the various ports that we have as well. Bring in the Defense Force here. You know, we have a Defense Force, a great Defense Force. What do they do? Do we know what they do? Well, I'm just asking for a friend. They are great men and women, and I'll come back to them in a moment, the Defense Force. You remember when we were in government, we suggested that we will bring the police to work jointly with Defense Force, because I think it's about 5,000 men and women in the Defense Force who could assist where the crime situation is now so bad. And we are such a, they call it the soldier bill. I don't know if anybody remembers, and they refused to support it. You know, much better off we would be today if we had these joint forces working together. But no. Their plan was to put a management audit into the TTPS. Well, that came and went. They did the audit. They laid it in Parliament. I think it went to a joint select committee. Remind me, what happened? Like the pepper spray, gone. Disappeared, just more talk, and nothing happened. So, based on, because I'm saying of critical importance in this world now, the world we live in, and in our country. Border protection, terrorism cannot be placed under the Ministry of National Security, which is where it is now. It's not working, and it will not work, because that ministry is faced with the importance of internal law enforcement and protection of our citizens on a daily basis. Based on emerging trends in national security, especially the importance of border protection and terrorism, as I say, we restructure the Ministry of National Security into these two separate ministries. Mr. Rowley, when we're in government, would cry every day, come and cry, oh God, the partnership, the UNC-led government, we have too many ministers and ministries. Anybody did a check recently of how many he has? How many ministries they have? How many ministers in ministries, and giving these ministers in ministries portfolio assignments, units to function? Are they going to cabinet to report on their units? How is it working? So let's check that. It's not about having too many ministries, it's about having efficient and competent ministries to do the jobs. So as I say, we split into two, separate, to deal with primary crime prevention here, law enforcement, deterrence, hard targeting, intelligence, patrols, high visibility, policing, apprehension, and arrests. And the Ministry of Home Affairs, on the other hand, we will have the major arms of the Ministry of Home Affairs as follows: the TTPS, the TT Fire Service, the TT Prison Service, the Office of Disaster Preparedness, Cadets, SSA, National Security Training Academy, E99 Call Center, Community Comfort Patrols. What has happened to the Community Comfort Patrols? Why did you get rid of those in a time when every community is now under siege? They want to do it now? Visibility. Yes, those patrols, you're right, MP Tanku. Those patrols was the heightened presence of policemen throughout the country, in the communities. The major arms we propose for the Ministry of Defense: the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, including Army, Coast Guard, Air Guard, and the Reserves. Customs Division be removed from the Ministry of Finance. Why is Customs under the Ministry of Finance? Why? You have to think about that, eh? Because anytime something is somewhere in this government, it's some friend or family is benefiting from it. Customs should be removed from the Ministry of Finance and come under the Ministry of Defense. Why? Where are all the guns coming from? Where are all the drugs coming from? Are they just being flown, dropped somewhere out of the sky? They are coming through those same customs divisions. And therefore, this is where you need to have that under a Ministry of Defense, who will be tasked with trying its best to avoid. Don't just happen at the port too now. I think that port has collapsed. They want to sell it. Well, I don't know if anybody will even want to buy it when they are done. Ports, key points where all these illegal things are happening. So I'm saying the TT Defense Force, the Customs Division, the Immigration Department also should be under this, again, Border Protection, Ministry of Defense, as both immigration and customs fall into the category of border security. Also under this Ministry of Defense, Transnational Organized Crime Unit. National Security Special Operations Group, also under this ministry. The Radar Center, the Counter Trafficking Unit, the Covert and Counter Terrorism Unit, all these to come under a Ministry of Defense for what? For border protection and security. I know you all like the bacchanal and so on, but I think we have to be serious if we want to tackle this crime situation. What I'm sharing with you here tonight has now become international best practice because of the importance of border protection, the global effect of terrorism, drug smuggling, human trafficking, illegal entry of weapons, and therefore you cannot box internal national security with border security. You can see it makes sense. It makes sense you have specialized people in each ministry to deal with different aspects of law enforcement. This will give us a comprehensive system and structure to focus on securing our borders. Critical, but is not being done. It is boxed into a ministry that has to deal with policing, fire, prisons, immigration, and so on. So here we focus on border protection as well as home affairs internal protection. I told you I'll come back to the men and women, good men and women of the Defense Force. We propose, the UNC proposed, that the UNC government will increase the retirement age for all serving members of the Defense Force. Now, don't shout now, because I spoke to you last time about the public servants and the increase in age. Bear with me a moment. We must enable the retention of experienced personnel within the respective arms of the military. Research has shown that our current Defense Force retirement strategy is not in keeping with international industry best practices. In the case of Canada and Denmark, the compulsory retirement age for regular forces and primary reservists is 60 years. In Norway, military personnel can serve a maximum of up to 40 years and up to the age of 60, whichever comes first. Australia has a general ceiling for commissioned and non-commissioned officers of what? 60 years. And this is based on the principle that assessment should be based upon a person's ability to perform the tasks of their job regardless of their age. Records show, for us here, the Defense Force, ours, 98% of the TT Defense Force personnel never continue after the age of 50 years, primarily because of the present retirement age. There's also a significant proportion of servicemen at the rank of Major Lieutenant Commander, Squadron Leader, who must retire at 47 years old. Can that ever be right? I think many of you sitting here must be even older than 47, and you're going strong as ever. I am one of those, by the way. Age is just a number. So here we have people who are retiring at 47 years age, after they work for about half of an average work life. We should note that the Defense Force has been actually generating a large pool of young retirees who, in most instances, if not employed, they have to wait several years before they get the old age pension. So if you leave at 47, then you have to wait until, what is it, 65? The extension of these retirement ages would therefore assist in retaining experience across the force. The Defense Force has also had to compete against other services which offer much longer tenure for their members. So the TT Defense Force would have lost many potential recruits, as well as those who would have left the force to join another service. Why? Because they get a longer tenure in that office. The recommendation for an increase for all serving members of the Coast Guard, Air Guard, Regiment would allow the Defense Force to adequately meet its local, regional, and international commitments. Also, if we extend this retirement age, we get a wider, holistic human resource reform, which will include a more aggressive recruitment approach for all ranks in keeping with the present force strategic HR plan. So, increase the retirement age there. The ones with the public servants, I talked to you about that before, about increasing that age. But here we have people, able-bodied men and women at 47 years, dropping out of the workforce with tremendous expertise and experience. I move along to another suggestion. We will introduce, the UNC government will introduce new criteria for the selection of police recruits. All new recruits will now have to possess at least a diploma in policing. We will develop these diploma programs, undergraduate and postgraduate degree programs, and implement them where? We already have the facilities at the UWI Davie campus. We can put those courses in place there. We will combine these academic programs with a part-time police apprenticeship practical program. Some of the new courses that we will offer for training will be law, governance, and the criminal justice system. You know, at a time, the police regulations in our country, if you were below a certain height, you could not become a policeman. Did you know that? So if you are tall enough, whether you have the brawn or the brain, you would qualify as against someone else. So I think some of you here would never have qualified under the old regulations. But here we are saying courses on law, governance, and criminal justice. neighborhood and community safety, understanding vulnerability, risk, and threats in society, technology in policing, policing, criminology, and victimology, practical forensics for policing, academic and professional skills for police research, methods in policing and security, investigation of serious and organized crime, cybercrime and forensic investigation, and accounting. So these are some of the courses that we can order at the undergrad. We can have training for persons who want to be recruited into the service at the university. So you have that massive structure sitting there empty. Empty. All the money spent, nothing is wrong with it. The only problem they had, it was because it was based in a place called Penal. That was the problem that they had with it. They never understood the vision behind that campus. Our vision was that, look, we have the St. Augustine campus, which could only take X number of students. There was no more land around that campus. Everything, if you go there, you'll see it. Every piece of land is covered with a building. And our vision, our mission then was, listen, the people from up north, along the corridor, you could take 5,000 of them there. And then the people from Aruga, Mayaro, Point 14, all the way all in the south, where would they be? At the campus here in Penal. You know, that does two things. It offers more students an opportunity, but it also helps you with traffic, all the traffic heading north in the morning and heading back south and central in the evenings. So we also had that part of the vision, and decentralization, of course, that everywhere there will be places of access for whether it be education and whether for jobs and so on. So that's another point for recruiting and for training of persons who may have an interest in policing. Another area I want to talk about, and I know time is going against us, we have some suggestions for something known as pre-trial detention and bail reform. Now, before I get there, MP Dinesh mentioned the bail legislation that they want to bring back. I don't understand these people hard, and there's a stick break in their ears. You had the bail legislation. It did not work. You came back and asked us to extend it. We said, no, we wanted some changes and so on. And we said, okay, because you're blaming us as usual. So we gave you the majority you needed, and we renewed it, you know. MPs here will remember we gave them the votes, special majority vote, and say, okay, if you really believe it, go ahead. We passed it, and what happened? Still failed. Nothing. Nothing happened. Did not help with the crime. So what you come in again, rehashed policy, talk about bail legislation, so clueless, they don't have a thought. What bail, what are you going to do, lock up the whole country? Is that your plan, to lock up everyone? You think that will stop the crime? It will not. Because you had that law in place, and it did not work. I remember the now disgraced Attorney General Faris Alwari, when they came with this piece of legislation. He stood up in the parliament. We know where the gangs are. We know who the gangs. We have their names. We have their addresses. And up to they can't lock up one of them. They lie. They fool you. They distract you like they have the answers, but they have no answers whatsoever to anything, not just about crime, but to anything in this country. So we want to suggest that the present jail bail system, many injustices here. To get out of jail under the system, you have to put up cash or other assets to pay a bond. It serves as collateral to secure that you do come back to court on the date of your hearing. If you come back to court, the court will give you back your money, but when? At the conclusion of the trial. How long does that take? Again, it's years upon years and upon years, regardless of the outcome. If they don't, you forfeit the money, you face additional penalties if you abscond and don't show up. This scheme benefits the rich, never ever poor people. It allows many defendants with financial resources to post a bond, bail out, go about their lives while they wait for trial. We're talking about pre-trial detention, meaning lockup, okay? Even when they face more serious charges than a poor person with a minor charge who cannot afford the bail. Defendants who remain incarcerated are often poor, some suffering from mental health issues, substance abuse issues. But bail is not intended to be used to punish people. That's not what bail is for. Bail is to secure that you come back to court on the date fixed for your hearing. And it must not be set higher than is necessary to preserve public safety and assure that the accused returns to court. Those who cannot afford bail end up paying up instead with time behind bars. That's how they get out. They stay behind bars. In our jails, in our cells, total overcrowding. Inmates are exposed to violence, filth, disease. Inmates can spend days in a bare cell without exercise, sunlight, or even human interaction. That is inhumane. That is inhumane. That is animal treatment for human beings. And you'll come and you're bleeding hearts to the crying, no, no, they're criminals, lock them up, kill them, kill them. You don't work like that in a society that has a proper respect for the rule of law, that has a proper respect for the dignity of the human being. We don't have that. Inmates may be forced to use buckets which remain in their cells for hours, empty the following morning, and then you'll have the bleeding. I say that's good for them. They're criminals. But they have not been found guilty. They have not yet been found guilty, and therefore this is why I say we can categorize those who should stay for pretrial detention and those who should be given some leniency. So those conditions, jail overcrowding, acute psychological trauma. So if you were not a criminal before you went in there, when they lock you down there without bail, you become one by the time you come out. You become inhumane. You become like an animal. For those entangled in the system, the consequences are brutal. Many defendants are living paycheck to paycheck, but when you lock them down here, what's happening? No paycheck. No money for their families, for their children. If they can't show up to work, they get fired. They're stripped of the ability to be self-sufficient. If they have children, families, they cannot support them. They may lose access to housing and benefits. They may fall short on payments, leaving them cut off from families and other support systems. These pitfalls affect all defendants, regardless of whether you are innocent or guilty. And given the length of time it takes for your matter to be brought to trial, this is really, I'm saying, totally unconscionable in a society that has a proper respect for the dignity of the human being. So if you keep a low or medium risk person in jail, pre-trial, before trial, you are destabilizing them. You're taking them away from the things that made them low risk to begin with. And then they may actually increase, as I said, their likelihood of committing crimes. And so there are alternative approaches to pre-trial detention that are not only based upon your ability to pay. A growing number of jurisdictions are turning to individualized assessments, which consider the defendant's personal, financial, and criminal background in order to inform bail decisions. These risk profiles can be used to determine appropriate bail amounts, as well as who must remain behind bars without bail and who can be released under supervision of a pretrial services program and who can leave under their own recognizance. We can talk about minimum security detention centers. We can set up minimum security detention centers based south, north, central, Tobago, and so on, with work release during the day and detention at night. So there are alternatives. These people are not animals. One day is for them, one day might be for you, because this criminal justice system is so corrupt, you don't know when they're coming to pick up anybody in this country. You don't know. So don't ever think it's only them poor boys and them boys up in Laventille and beat them. It's anywhere, it's any one of you. Because it's just the system under this corrupt dictatorial government is so corrupt in itself. And therefore we must have these alternatives. We can have these minimum detention centers to house non-violent offenders who are remanded pre-trial and they cannot get bail. Non-violent offenders. The locations will make it easier so their families can visit them, their loved ones, and so on. All rehab facilities and treatments will be offered for persons with drug and mental illness issues. And of course, again, you do an assessment. So if a person is mentally ill, they are not a high risk, they are not violent, is that the best place to drop them in a jail cell, lock them up in that kind of condition? No. No, it cannot be. People with drug issues as well. Locking them away, is that going to help them or help anyone in the society? What about fines for traffic offenses and so on? Placing these people, in not violent people, in a jail? They can't work, so they'll never be able to pay the fine. They will lose their jobs. I'm saying we consider these alternatives, and I bet by tomorrow night, Rowley on the platform is saying Kamla and them UNC want to free all the criminals, want to open the jails. That is not what I'm recommending, because you're also dotish, you will not understand that there are categories of offenders. Categories of offenders. And so you do it on a case-by-case basis to access work release during their existing job hours, as I said, return to the facility at night time. And what could they have done? We passed this law to put the, what was it, Rudy, the bracelets? Electronic monitoring bracelets. What became of that? That's another way, again, the overcrowding. I saw Faris, the same disgraced AG. Remember he came, crocodile tears one morning, it's cost to feed one prisoner inside a jail. That's taxpayers' dollars, we understand. But if it's a non-violent person, etc., and you do the individual case-by-case assessment, you have the bracelet. So you know where that person is every single minute of every hour of every day. What has become of that? So many good initiatives, we passed a law for that. Thrown on the wayside. Gone. And then you come to cry crocodile tears about, is UNC encouraging crime? You know they say that? When they fail, they blame everyone else. So we can deal with laws to prevent incarceration, meaning jail, of non-violent drug offenders. Not violent. Not violent, again, you do it case by case by case. We can pass legislation for compulsory drug treatment, not jail. And that will divert non-violent drug offenders. We send them to a drug treatment program for rehabilitation. Locking them in a jail will only further ruin their lives and that of their families. Anchor bracelets, I mentioned it before, on house arrest. We can use these two methods to reduce our current expenditure, housing prisoners. Non-violent, look about what are old and infirm prisoners. We can put them on house arrest with the monitoring bracelets. All infirm, not a danger to society, but yes, crime, there's punishment, but we can use another method to monitor, know where they are and what to do. So in addition to saving state money for housing and feeding these persons, these bracelets will also prevent the destructive effect of removing fathers or mothers from their homes. A proper risk assessment will be done. It's our belief that we should try our utmost to keep parents in the lives of their children. We have old and infirm prisoners, I mentioned already, are not a threat to the society, not a threat to anyone. The only threats to Trinidad and Tobago is Rowley and his cabinet. Those are the biggest threats to the country. We can use this method to reintegrate them back in society. People do make mistakes. Some deserve to be in jail. I make the point. I'm not saying open the jail and let everybody run out, because that's what Rowley going to tell you all tomorrow. So, he lies, so we just put him aside. And don't bother with David. You don't go up by bullet to see this man at all. And I think a very important measure, our children are also under siege. And therefore, I want to suggest, we from the UNC, that when you lock up parents, you disrupt the family relationships, you get negative outcomes for children, including poverty, poor academic records, poor performance, aggression, depression, delinquency, substance abuse. And therefore, I want to make a suggestion that mothers and fathers who are unable to work on parenting skills that may be necessary for reunification, separation, interferes with the parent's ability and the child to form and maintain a strong attachment. Through no fault of their own, children pay the price for their parents' behavior. Children pay the price for parents' behavior. Often without parental support, these children become victims of abuse, and in turn some become criminals as well. A UNC government will introduce programs for the financial, psychological, and emotional support of children for the duration of the parents' lockup, incarceration in a jail. we will afford and give support to these children. They were not to blame. It was never their fault. We plan to utilize the support of the police youth clubs, religious organizations, schools, social services, and so on. On top of this, the children of crime victims, children who have lost one or both parents to crime, we suggest that they suffer the most. They're in fact the hidden victims of most crimes. Children's experience as either targets or witnesses to violence affect their views on the world, themselves, their ideas, the meaning, the purpose of their life, their expectations, and their moral development. Exposure to violence often interferes with their developmental tasks children need to accomplish to become competent members of society. And therefore, we propose a fund be set up, again on a case-by-case basis, to provide necessary support to children who have lost one or both parents to crime. So when you get a mother and father wiped out, what happens to those children? What becomes of them? Does anyone think about that? One minister will run and drop 2 hampers by the house, take a big photo up, and that's the end of that. Remember that? The minister of, which one was it? The one social development. You go and cry 2 crocodile tears, you make 1 visit and another Halloween pic, photo up. So we should have a fund, and again on a case-by-case basis, to support children who have lost one or both parents to crime. No amount of money can replace a parent, but we must do our best for our nation's children. These are just some of our plans to help with the crime pandemic. And for more of our anti-crime plans, you can check our website, social media page. So I just did some of them tonight. We have some very solid plans. We believe they could work. We had begun some of them whilst we were in office, but there are more that we have developed over time and in the way that the society has moved on. So I close now with the P&M indemnity scandal. You have spoken of it, many have spoken of it. We just have to see that the P&M is akin to a criminal enterprise. You look at the Nelsongate matter, we see it as in a long line of unlawful actions committed by this government. The members try their best to escape the Nelsongate scandal, and they will not get away by having PIP. They will have to come and account for their actions in this matter. And I want to remind you that you remember when the government changed, Nelson remained on a retainer with the P&M. Remember that. He gave a 1-page legal opinion on the $1 billion lawsuit against former chairman Malcolm Jones. You remember that? Before that, he gave pages and pages when we were in government as to why the state had a good case to go after the billions that the government lost, the state lost because of WGTL scandal with Malcolm Jones. And he gave those opinions, the cases were filed, and what happened? Government changed. Nelson said, listen, I have cancer. Sorry to hear it, but I want my money. Reminds me of Rowley, I want my money. I don't like my money sleeping out, I want my money now, no. And so he sued the state for $11 million, $10 million or $11 million for previous work done. He filed a case, against the AG, the now disgraced AG, Faris Al-Rawi, for that $10 to $11 million. And then he succeeded in that part of the case. The government appealed. The Faris government appealed. And in between that, suddenly now, Faris meets this man, Mr. Nelson, and they broke a deal. I will pay you the money, but you know what? You had to turn state witness. So this man wants his money, wants his money, wants his money. Real bad, real bad. And then the rest you've heard before, repeated in the print press everywhere. What happened? He turned state witness to implicate himself and others. Well, that case collapsed. But I want you to remember, in addition to that $10, $11 million, and they paid it, Faris's government paid it. And he withdrew the cases. They said, we'll kill the appeal. Nelson, we pay you, and they paid him. But there's another question I want to ask. When Nelson now remained as Farris's lawyer now in the Petrotrin matter, the Malcolm Jones WGTL scandal, he wrote a one-page opinion, one page, for the government to withdraw $1 billion case, a one-page opinion. My question tonight is, how much money did you pay Nelson for that one-page legal opinion that you used to withdraw the case? How much did you pay him? So the 11 million plus, and continuing the indemnity you've heard about before, all the millions that she was claiming there. How much did you pay? Because when this matter went to the Privy Council, I want to remind you, this matter with the Nelson's opinion, the withdrawal of the case against Malcolm Jones, this is what the Privy Council said. It appears to the board, that is the board of the Privy Council, and I'm quoting, that as the available evidence stands at the moment, there are grounds for thinking that the decision to abandon the claim against Mr. Jones may have been influenced by political factors. There's a Privy Council, you know, they didn't outright come up and say, boy, it's pure politics going on here. Influenced by political factors. And the then A.G. Farris was involved in the matter of the withdrawal. Shortly after Nelson was paid for this bogus opinion, as I said, he was seeking the 11 million. How much did you pay him for this one-page legal opinion, which you used to withdraw the case of Malcolm Jones? And shameless as they are, when we called out Farris, he said it was him and him and him. Remember, Dinesh? Was Farris say, well, look, we had to withdraw this case because Nelson gave us a one-pager and say, bad case. Remember that? And you had the other deals that you cut with the indemnity and so on. Political factors. So Farris was then involved, paid the 11 million. Al-Rawri refused to pay him. He filed a written and whatever, as I told you, and then he turned witness against these people. So political factors. So Farris was saying, yes, it was me. And then when we called him out, he said, you know what? No, it's the board of Petrotrin gave the opinion to withdraw the case. Lies again. These people, both these shameless liars that we have run in this country. So I just wanted to remind you about this. It is not just about Nelson Gate and the turned state witnesses. So much more is involved and so much money. I close tonight with just something that Dr. Poliical had raised because I think it is very important. This has to do with the Todd Street, and I know a lot of people are very keen and want to hear about this matter. So we have in our possession documents Dr. Poliical would have released, and I have them some here. And just look at the timeline. On the 23rd of March 2022, a letter from the Minister of Education, signed under the hand of whom? The Minister Bundles. No, sorry, Nyan Gatsby Dolly. That's Arnold, just prints this in your brain, you know. 23rd March, to Mr. Noel Garcia, Chairman of the HDC. Dear Chairman, non-objection to use approximately 1 hectare of unutilized land designated for institutional purposes and located off Tots Road, San Fernando. We refer to the subject and caption. Further to your letter dated 8 March, this is what the Minister Gatsby Dolly said. Further to your letter of 8th March, the Minister of Education does not object to the use of the land by the Trinidad and Tobago Housing Development Corporation. This is signed by whom? The Minister of Education. I want you to remember that. Rudy, you had raised these things already. Signed by Minister Gatsby Dolly. This is dated, as I said, 23rd March this year, 2022. Second letter now comes from the Ministry of Planning. This letter is dated April 7, 2022. So a few weeks later, April this year. And this letter goes to the Managing Director, Housing Development Corporation, their Managing Director. Listen to this. Request for the use of the parcel of land. Please be advised, the matter has been investigated. The site is located in an area allocated for urban development with a parent parcel, of which this 1 hectare forms part being allocated as a school site. This is from whom? Tongue and Country. This is after Minister Gatsby said they have no objection. They have none. This is Town and Country Planning. Okay? Then it says, the Town and Country Planning Division does not recommend the use of this site for residential purposes, as this would not conform with present planning policy. Totally contrary to what Minister Gatsby said. Further, any future recommendation must be completed by a written correspondence from the Ministry of Education. So here, a totally different thing, a little while after, from Minister Gatsby, where he doesn't end there, you know. Moving along. Ministry of Education, 23rd March, as I told you. And then now we have, so we had 23rd March, Gatsby saying, go ahead, no problem. Town and Country Planning say, no way. And then we come now to 29 July of this year. From whom? The Ministry of Education. This is after Gatsby's letter, which was in 23rd March, July 29, 2022, from the Ministry of Education. Who signs this letter now? The Permanent Secretary. So is the minister going against the public servants? Or are the public servants going against the minister? This is what it says to the Housing Development Corporation. It says, a site visit to the unutilized land designated for institutional purposes, located off Todd Street, substantiated the need to retain the lands for its intended purpose. This is a PS. But Gatsby Dolly feels she's the boss. They're in charge now. Tongue and Country says no. PS says no. But Minister Gatsby says, go ahead, man, take it. Give it to the HDC. The letter continues. The lands will present opportunity for more green spaces and facilitate the construction of replacement facilities, expansion of the academic and sporting curriculum to San Fernando West, San Fernando Central Secondary Schools, which are both more than 50 years old. So here it is. The PS is saying, leave it what it is for. And continues, in light of the foregoing, in recognition of the ministry's responsibility to ensure none of the nation's youth is left behind, the ministry is unable to accede to your request. Permanent Secretary. Permanent Secretary, you see, you're all not going to get away with this. All of this is a bid to house pad and voter pad in San Fernando West and Lesser Form. That's what this is about. What is the Great Russian hurry? Your Permanent Secretary is saying no. Tongue and Country is telling you no, but no, look what happens now. So this one, where the minister says no, July 29, 2022, and then we come to the cabinet. The cabinet. In spite of the PS saying no, Tongue and Country saying no, these fellows just going ahead. Here it is, a cabinet matter considered September 8th, 2022. September 8th, 2022. Matter considered by Cabinet on, take note, September 8, 2022. Decision confirmed by Cabinet on September 8, 2022. The Cabinet does not operate like that. When a note comes to Cabinet, we've been there, done that. The matter is considered on one day, and then it is confirmed in the following week. So you have time, in case you have stopgap, you have things to check. No. Same day they bring the note. Same day. Considered, same day, approved to transfer the land to the HDC. Wow. That's what this cabinet minute is, dated September 8, 2022, considered September 8, 22, confirmed by the cabinet, and here what it says. Cabinet agreed to the transfer of the land, 1 hectare, Todd Street, and so on, to the Trinidad and Tobago Housing Development Corporation, to facilitate a development of multi-family housing, 72 apartment units. If that is not voter padding in broad daylight, what is not? Using state resources on lands, Tongue and Country says no. The public servants in Mr. Hurricane says no, but the minister, yes, go ahead. And then the cabinet comes now after all that and says they have agreed to transfer that piece of land to HDC. So, you know, lawyers, Dinesh and Kyle and all the great UNC lawyers get their thinking caps on and pen and paper and start to write. We must stop this project. We must stop this project. And not only must we stop it because it is not the right thing to do, given tongue country, given the words from Ministry of Education, but also because it's only for nefarious purposes of voter pardon, not for the benefit of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So my friends, as I close tonight, I want to thank you very much for your patience in joining us, in sharing with us, and I acknowledge we are in the darkest days, but as we tell you, every time we speak, I remind you that as surely as the day follows the night, the sun will rise again. I thank you and God bless you.
Who feel the black?